The story begins in the year 2050, where we see a girl named Nova searching for water on barren land. This is a time when Earth has become uninhabitable, and the oxygen level in the atmosphere is only 44%. Nova is moving forward when she receives a call from the command center and immediately heads there. At the command center, we see an old man whose face is half burnt. This man gives Nova the command that the mission time has arrived. After this, Nova puts on her spacesuit and boards the ship. Along with her, there is an AI robot. The two of them sit in the ship and begin to move out of Earth's orbit. When Nova looks outside the ship, she sees that Earth now looks like a lifeless rock. After this, Nova creates an energy-based wormhole and enters it. In fact, Nova is time-traveling to the past in order to prevent Earth's current condition. As soon as Nova enters the wormhole, her spaceship rapidly reaches the speed of light, causing Nova to begin losing consciousness. Meanwhile, the spaceship also experiences some malfunctions, resulting in Nova's spaceship crash landing in the year 2025. In 2025, a boy named Naz is riding his ATV bike when he notices Nova's spaceship. He follows it and sees that Nova is unconscious. Interestingly, Nova is now in the form of a child, meaning that due to time travel, her age has been reduced. While Nova is unconscious, the police officers, seeing the spaceship, head in the same direction. Therefore, Ed asks Naz for help, and Naz takes Nova on his ATV bike, transporting her to an old, abandoned factory. Meanwhile, the police officer arrives at the location of the spaceship, but apart from the ship, there is nothing else to be found. On the other hand, seeing Nova unconscious, Ed asks Naz to help revive her. But Naz replies, "Do I look like a doctor to you?" Ed dismisses him as useless and tells him to leave. Naz then remembers something and quickly heads to his cabin in the forest. He grabs a first aid box and rushes back to the factory. As soon as Naz leaves, Officer Cleary arrives at the factory and starts questioning Naz's father, since this was the only house near the crash site. The officer informs him that they found ATV tire tracks near the crash site. To this, Naz's father says that the ATV belongs to Naz and that he spends most of his time at the factory. Officer Cleary assumes they might have gone that way, so she heads towards the factory. Meanwhile, when Naz arrives at the factory, he finds nothing except Nova's spacesuit. As he continues searching for Nova and Ed, suddenly, Nova sneaks up from behind and points her gun at Naz. Ed, too, comments that Naz is of no use to them. Despite this, Naz, nervously, hands Nova a tissue so she can wipe the blood from her nose. Just then, Cleary arrives at the factory, but as soon as she enters, Nova, along with Naz and Ed, escapes in Cleary's car. On the way, Naz asks Nova who she is and why she's here. Nova replies that she is here for a good cause, but she can't reveal anything just yet. The next morning, Cleary and her colleague, Colonel, show Nova's spaceship. Cleary's colleague mentions that they found some fingerprints that perfectly match a girl named Nova. He also adds that the spaceship is far more advanced than anything from their time. In response, the Colonel orders them to gather all the information about the spaceship. Meanwhile, Nova and Naz continue driving in Cleary's car, and Nova is visibly happy, admiring the trees and plants around her. Since, by Nova's time, all this had already disappeared, the car suddenly breaks down due to overheating. However, by chance, a man named Elton passes by and offers to take Nova and Naz to his house. He also promises to fix their car. Both Nova and Naz agree, and they head to Elton's house, where his wife is busy with farming. Meanwhile, Cleary, along with her officers, arrives at the house of the younger Nova, who is actually the same Nova from 2025. She had been home the previous night. However, Cleary finds no concrete evidence, and has to leave empty-handed. Back at Elton's house, Elton and Naz successfully repair the car, and the group sits down together for dinner. Meanwhile, Officer Cleary has taken the younger Nova into custody. She was trying to figure out where such advanced technology had come from for such a young girl. Cleary asks Nova what her future is, to which Nova replies that she wants to become a fighter plane pilot. At that moment, Cleary's team tracks the location of her car, which is at Elton's house. So, Cleary arrives at Elton's house with her team. When the police arrive, Nova and Naz quickly run into the forest. Cleary asks Elton about her car, but Elton denies knowing anything. However, the officers manage to find the car. Cleary questions him, asking how the car ended up here, and shows him photos of Nova and Naz, asking about them. Elton refuses to provide any information, but the officers find Naz's jacket inside the house. In fact, after they arrived at Elton's house, Elton had given Naz new clothes to change into. Meanwhile, Nova and Naz realize what's happening and flee into the bushes. Cleary quickly figures out that the two of them have just escaped, so the whole team begins searching the bushes for them. Meanwhile, Nova and Naz encounter a police officer, whom Nova shoots. However, the officer doesn't die but moves in slow motion. Nova explains to Naz that she only slowed him down for a short time, which completely surprises Naz. He follows Nova as they move forward. When they leave, Cleary arrives and is shocked to see the officer moving in slow motion. Nova and Naz eventually reach a building called Falcon, where a meeting is being held regarding a project involving drilling in the North Pole. This project is being carried out by a man named Simon, who is working with his father. Nova tells Simon that they should not proceed with the project because drilling in the North Pole will lead to global warming, tsunamis, and the depletion of Earth's water, making the planet uninhabitable by 2050. Hearing such dire warnings from such a young girl, Simon and the others laugh and make fun of her. Simon's father instructs the security guards to throw the children out. However, Nova doesn't give up. She secretly sticks a device under Simon's car to track him. Meanwhile, Cleary is trying to help the officer, and an examination reveals that his physical body is fine, but his mind is racing at an unusually fast speed. At the same time, the security room at the Falcon building receives a call reporting that Nova was caught on CCTV placing a device in Simon's car. Hearing this, Cleary immediately heads to the building. Nova and Naz both watch as they are fitting something into Simon's car. Meanwhile, Nova has now reached Simon's house. She tells Simon that she knows him very well, and then shows him a hologram of an old man whose half-face was burned. This man is none other than an older version of Simon. The older Simon says that the drilling project his company is going to carry out in the North Pole will destroy the entire Earth, and that it's not right to end the world just to prove himself to his father. At first, Simon is confused by this, but then laughs at Nova and Naz, thinking they are joking with him. At that moment, the police arrive, and in a hurry, they open fire at Nova and Naz. Meanwhile, Naz, seizing the opportunity, reaches Elton and explains everything to him. Nova is then admitted to the hospital. When she regains consciousness, Claire comes to her and asks her to tell the truth so she can help. Trusting Claire, Nova also tells her to stop the drilling project and reveals the truth, that she is from the year 2050. It's hard for Claire to believe Nova's words, so she asks her colleague about the possibilities of time travel. Her colleague explains that the ship Nova arrived on is of advanced technology, which isn't possible in their time, and that the robot is also made using highly advanced technology. In the meantime, Ed regains consciousness, grabs Claire's gun, and escapes. Both Claire and Simon's father try to chase him, but by the time they reach the scene, Ed is far ahead. After that, Claire meets Simon and again asks him to check the drilling project, to ensure that there is no flaw and that it won't end up destroying the world. Just then, Simon's father arrives and tells Claire that they are conducting everything legally and that Simon should leave with him. Meanwhile, Ed reaches Naz and asks him to take Nova from the hospital to the spaceship so she can return to her time. Naz surrenders to the police, and using Nova's gun, he shoots them, putting them into slow motion. He then takes Nova from the hospital and heads straight to the crash site. Before Claire arrives, he gets Nova into the spaceship and sends her back to her time. In 2050, Nova is frustrated, believing that her mission has failed and that Earth can no longer be saved. However, the older Simon reassures her that it's not over yet. Just then, a child runs up to Nova and calls her Mommy. She realizes the child is her own, and that Naz, her husband, is with her. This means that changing the future by going into the past is possible. Motivated by this, Nova decides to go back to her mission. She returns to the same location where Claire was taking Naz. Nova confronts Claire, pointing a gun at her, and demands that she send Naz with her. Claire, now fully understanding the situation, agrees and complies. To save Earth, it is crucial to stop Simon's project. Nova and Naz board the spaceship and head towards the North Pole. On their way, they see several other spaceships, and Nova explains that these are different spaceships, all here to stop the drilling project. Meanwhile, at the North Pole, Simon's father is explaining the benefits of the project, but Simon argues that they need to stop it. Nova and Naz move forward, putting all the guards into slow motion. Simon's father is angry with him, but Simon insists that if Nova is telling the truth, they cannot risk destroying the world for the sake of one project. Simon's father refuses to listen, removes Simon from the project, and proceeds to activate the drilling machine. However, Nova freezes them and also pauses the shuttle. On the other side, Claire watches on TV as multiple time travelers arrive, and they destroy the machinery in the North Pole and other countries that were damaging the Earth. Nova successfully brings Naz to Elton's house, thanks him, and then returns to her time. She does not tell Naz that they were married in the future. Meanwhile, Claire takes Naz into custody and interrogates him. Naz reveals that this is just the beginning, and that in the future, time travel machines will be built. As long as Earth is in danger, time travelers will keep coming to fix it. Claire, understanding this, releases Naz and also returns his ATV bike. And with that, the movie ends. So, friends, how did you like this movie explanation? Please let me know in the comments. Like and share the video, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon so you don't miss any future videos. See you in the next video. Till then, bye bye, take care.